these districts of Kingston and the treatment of police and military. And you begin to form a very militant view of life in Jamaica. A lot of artists were actually mouthpieces for their political subordinates. A lot of artists and producers who owned studios were either Manley, I can't remember the name, so Manley, which was the left side, communist, and Siaga, the right side, which is, I think it was JLP. I can't remember their actual political abbreviations there. Thank you very much. Thank you. And they were actually mouthpieces. They would release a single, send it out on the streets, and it would tell them, support Edward, America is going to be our best friend. And then a few hours later, another single will be released. Manley, he's the man, you know, Castro forever. I'm doing this in a very basic way. They weren't saying these exact words. It was much more colloquial feelings. Hence, this mad era of music that was literally, there were hundreds and hundreds of singles released in 1 week alone. Little vinyl factories were set up around Kingston and as far north as Ocarius in St. Bays, St. Anne's, all the way to Montego Bay. Dozens and dozens of artists formed and created their own sounds. Hundreds of singles a week were released, basically talking about the struggles of Jamaica and their connections with West Africa, their culture. It was such a mad era of music between 1968 and say 1976, when Bob Marley then was Bob Marley and the Wailers. And then we had such influential artists like Burning Spear, incredible artists who spoke closely of African struggle. The Abyssinians released a very, very important song, Asama Gassana, I think. It's an African verb. I should have looked this up this morning. Basically, Free Africa, which was a very pivotal single that was released, and to make people aware where they're from and who they are. But then in between all that, we had DJs forming. U-Roy, I-Roy, they would talk over rhythms from singles, and they put their own interpretation, their own voice into it. Big Youth. These were huge artists who were popular with the young men on the streets of Jamaica that spoke of their language, of their vibe, of their interests, their struggles. And you have maverick producers like Lee Scratch Perry, that was producing hundreds of singles a week of his own interpretation. And he's now in his late 80s still producing music. You know, and he should have been dead 30 odd years ago, like Keith Richards.
Didn't he die fairly recently?
Sorry?
Didn't he die fairly recently, Lee Scratch Perry?
I hope not, because that'd be news to me if he has.
Well, I don't know, I've still got it wrong, but I don't think so.
No,
No?
because he's...
Who am I thinking of then? Somebody else? Somebody else, yeah.
He's on that documentary.
Oh yes, he would be.
Film.
They filmed him at his studio in Cardiff Crescent, which is part of West Kingston. And it was basically the Black Ark studio. And he would invite all manner of musicians, some who couldn't even play instruments, some who could hardly sing. And he created incredible strange sounds from mixing boards and equipment that he procured off people like Richard Blackwell, who was the head of Island Records. And he would go to Great Britain a lot to bring back instruments and other things. And he'd create these crazy sounds called dub. He wasn't the inventor of dub. Nobody actually knows who invented dub. It basically came by accident. Because really, when they used to release that many singles, there'd be the vocal version, which would be about 2 minutes long, and then they would do a non-instrument version, which was just obviously instrumentation. Then they would do a DJ version where the I-Roys, U-Roys, the Big Youths would do their chat version over the same rhythm, and then people like the Lee Scratch Perry, this gentleman, forget his name now, Jack Ruby,
Where the slow Robbie?
King Tubby, distorted the sounds of rhythms, the instruments, distorting with electronics. And I'll argue with any American who loves their music that that's where really, technically, where rap and that sound of rap started, really from dub in Jamaica. Sorry? Then there are many interpretations which we could spend many a day talking about, which go on forever and ever. But it's formulated from that. In fact, and that's a strange thing to say, but you've heard of a band from Germany called Kraftwerk. They were very heavily influenced. The DJs from New York, and that were heavily influenced by Kraftwerk, Africa Bambita and all those. They actually cited Kraftwerk, of all people, this electronic dum 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 beat. But Kraftwerk, the originator, said that he did hear a lot of Scratch Perry and King Tubby. See how it all links: Europe through the islands, those lands up, West Africa. It inevitably always links back. So that crazy period from the late 60s to the mid 70s to the end of the 70s, which was the cultural roots era, where Bob Marley became extremely famous, became internationally known, and put his own version, his look on Africanism, on Caribbeanism. Buffalo Soldier is the most remarkable song ever produced. It's such a simple song. If you listen to the lyrics, what he came out with, I mean, he wrote this. Buffalo Soldier, dreadlock Rasta, straight away he influenced the Rastafarism, which he converted to. Brought him from Africa, sold him to America. The link, Orleans, the link, colonialism, sold as a slavery, sold as a slave. The buffalo, it's an American symbol, isn't it? It's an animal. He's now free. He can roam the plains. Marley interspersed all that history, West Africa, East Africa, through the Americas, through Jamaica, through the rest of the islands.
All the best artists can do that.
Yes.
There's very few of them, but they
very
can all
few,
do it.
yes.
Bob Dylan.
But yes, of course, yes, in another context, yes. But if you ever have a chance to listen to that single, it's played a lot on a lot of commercial stations today, and it's it's Bob Marley, the rhythm's clear. But listen to those lyrics. They do repeat over 3 or 4 verses, but he hits it right on the head. What pan-Caribbeanism is all about. That one single, plus the Abyssinians I mentioned earlier, really relates what all those links are. That dreadful triangle that I started with before you came, you know. And he was one of many that interpreted it. Years later, so the 1980s, Jamaica was still in turmoil, civil war inside, political. The digital age came in, where Prince Jammy, which was King Tubby's protege, created the digital sound on the Casio, a simple little instrument. And that rhythm, which was transposed into something else, slack lyrics, which were very naughty, very disproportionate to women and to generalization of other people's beliefs, and created superstars in Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean. And then ragga music that came in the late 80s and early 90s. The Buju Bantams, the Sizzlers, these are artists that transpose from dance hall music, and they started to mix some of the more extreme views of West Africanism and East Africanism. Sizzler, an artist, he's actually into Bobo Ashanti, which is a splinter tribe of Rastafarism. And you can tell because they wear turban, and they have communes, and they stick to themselves, and they believe in the Prophet Emmanuel. So it's splintered away from Rastafarism, and they develop their own sound and their own mini culture, if you use the way. But it's reflective on the